Question 36 continued. Write the binomial expansion of 2x minus 1, and that's raised to the fifth power, as a polynomial in simplest form. Well, the way we write it out, I'm going to just say it again, is you start with the 2x, which is your first variable in this thing that's raised to power. It's raised to the fifth power. So the first variable starts with that highest power, and it's minus 1, so the negative 1 is the second variable, starts with the 0 power. Every single time the first power is going to go down each plus, and the second variable is going to go up a power. For example, you have, first you do 5 combination 0, which we know is 1, plus, 5 combination 0 times 2x to the fifth power negative 1 to the 0 power. Let's work that out. 5 combination 0 is 1. 2x to the fifth power, 2 to the fifth power is 32. So it's 5 combination 0 times 32. And x to the fifth power is x to the fifth power. So it's 32 times x to the fifth power and times negative 1 plus 5 combination 1 is equal to 5. In the TI-83, 84 calculators, what you do is you hit 5, hit the math section thing, and go press the left arrow and press down. When you're in the probabilities, you'll see number 3 is NCR. So you press enter over there and you put in 1. You'll get that's equal to 5. 2 to the fourth power. So it's 5 times 2 to the fourth power is, by the way, back here, anything to the 0 power is equal to 0, is equal to 1. Anything to the 0 power is 1. The times 1 you don't have to write in there. So, so negative 1 becomes 1 because anything to the 0 power is equal to 1. So it's 5 combination 1 is 5. 2 to the fourth power is 16. X to the fourth power is x to the fourth power. Negative 1 to the first power is just a negative 1. And 5 combination 2 is equal to 10. Times 2 to the third power is 8. And x to the third power is x to the third power. Times negative 1 squared is just 1. So you don't have to do that because anything times 1 is itself. Plus 5 combination 3 is equal to 10. Times 2 to the second power is 4. And x to the second power is x to the second power. So it's 2x squared. And if a negative number is multiplied in an odd amount of times, it's negative. If it's an even amount of times, it's even. It's positive. So this is negative 1 multiplied 3 times, negative 1 times negative 1 times negative 1. Negative 1 times negative 1 is a positive 1, times a negative another negative 1. The third negative 1 brings it back to being a negative 1. 5 combination 4 is equal to 5. 2x to the first power is just 2x. So it's 5 times 2x. And negative 1 to the fourth power, it's an even amount of powers, so the negative becomes a positive. And 1 multiplied 4 times is just plain 1. Plus 5 combination 5 is equal to 1. 2x to the 0 power is just 1, because anything to the 0 power is 1. Negative 1 to the fifth power, it's a negative to an odd amount of power, so it's negative, and it's a negative 1. Now we're going to add this all together. 1 times 32x to the fifth is 1 times 32x to the fifth. 5 times 16 is 80, and it's times a negative 1, so it's negative 80 x to the fourth power, plus 10 times 8 is 80 x to the third power, plus 10 times this over here was a mistake because 2 to the second power is 4. I'm going to change that. See, even mathematicians can make mistakes. 2 2 to the second power is 4. X to the second power is x squared. So 4 times 10 is 40 x squared, and it's times negative 1. So it's negative, anything times an odd amount of negative is negative. So 40x squared times negative 1 is negative 40x squared. And 5 combination 4 is equal to 5. 2 to the 2x to the first power is 2x. Negative 1 to the fourth power is an even amount of negatives, it's positive. It's just 1 multiplied 4 times. So anything times 1, even 1 multiplied by itself a billion times is just 1. So it's 5 times 2x is equal to 10x plus 5 combination 5 is equal to 1. And 2x to the 0 power is 1. So we're not even going to multiply it because just 1 times 1. And times negative 1 to the 5th power. So negative 1 to the 4th power is a positive 1 times another negative 1 makes it negative 1. Negative 1 to any even power is an even number, is a positive number, and negative 1 to any odd power is equal to a negative number. So your final answer will be 32x to the 5th minus 80x to the 4th plus 80x to the 3rd minus 40x squared plus 10x minus 1. Now whenever you have what you had over here in this question, 2x minus 1, one of them is a minus, and it's raised, let's say, to the 5th power, it's raised to the power, it should work out like this. First one positive, second one negative. If it doesn't, you should check your answer. A question like this, I would suggest that you go through the other questions first before this one, because this one, as you see I myself, anyone can make a lot of mistakes in such a problem. So this should be the last problem to do. It's not that hard if you use a graphing calculator. All you have to do is you put it on, do, let's say you start with 5 combination 0, and if you don't know what these combination things are, I'll explain what it is. 5 combination 0, remember we're finished with the problem now. You should have this whole thing at top written down, and you should have this as your answer. This is all you need to get full credit. I'm just going to show you right now what combinations are. Combinations are, let's say you have 5 combination 3. That's equal to 5 factorial over, in parentheses, 5 minus 3 and that whole thing, when you come out the answer, is factorial, and times 3 factorial. And that thing will be equal to 5 factorial, just 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. 3 times 2 times 1 is just 3 factorial, so I'll leave it like that, because we're going to have 3 factorial over here, and 5 minus 3 is 2, and that whole thing is factorial, so it's 2 factorial. 2 factorial is 2 times 1, so we'll just write 2 over there. And in the outside you have 3 factorial. So 5 times 4 is 10, divided by 2 is 5. But 5 times 4 is not 10. Question 36. Write the binomial expansion of 2x minus 1, and that 2x minus 1 is raised to the 5th power, as a polynomial in simplest form. So a binomial expansion is you take combinations, and the first one, let's say the 2x, will have that highest power you started with, and the minus 1 will start with the 0 power, and as you move down, the 2x will move to the 5th power, move to the 4th power, to the 3rd, 2nd, 1st, till you hit the 0 power. And at that point, the negative 1 will move to the 0 power, to the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and finally the 5th power. Now, how do we write a binomial expansion? So first let's do the binomial expansion. It's 2x minus 1 to the 5th power. So you start with 5 combination 0. So let's first explain what a combination is. Combination is, let's say you have combination 5 combination 0. That means it's equal to 5 factorial over 5 minus 0 factorial and times 0 factorial. So 5 minus 0 is 5. So this thing over here, 5 factorial is 5 factorial on top. 5 minus 0 factorial, 5 minus 0, and that whole thing is factorial, is equal to 5 factorial, times the 5 you take in combination 0 times, it's times 0 factorial. Anything 0 factorial is always equal to 1. So it's times 1. So 5 factorial over 5 factorial times 1, anything over itself, it doesn't make a difference. Anything over itself is 1. And anything multiplied by 1 or divided by 1 is itself. When you multiply and divide by 1, you did not change anything. So 5 factorial over 5 factorial is 1. So we're going to work out this 2x minus 1 to the 5th power. So we do 5 combination 0 times 2x, and that's to the 5th power because we start with the 5, and the negative 1, which is the second one, is to the 0 power plus then 5 combination 1, 5 combination 2. So the second one is 5 combination 1 times 2x to the 4th power and negative 1 to the 1st power. And as you see, we're going up plus 5 combination 2, and then we'll go to 5 combination 3. So it's 5 combination 2, and times the 2x now is going down. You see it was at 5, it was at 4. Now the 2x is just to the 3rd power, and negative 1, the powers are going up. Negative 1 is to the 2nd power, plus, from 5 factorial 2, we're adding 5 factorial 3, times 2x, that's raised to the 2nd power. You see it's going down, and negative 1, the powers are going up. It's negative 1 to the 3rd power, plus 5 factorial 4, times 2x to the 1st power, negative 1 to the 4th power, plus 5 factorial 5, times 2x to the 0 power, and negative 1 to the 5th power. Let's work this out. 5 combination 1, if you take out your calculators, it's the easiest way to do it. You hit 5, you first start with 5 combination 0. If you hit 5, you hit the math button, you press the left arrow, you go down to twice, where you see it says NCR, that's number, combination, R is the amount of times, and you press enter. Press 0, 5 combination 0 is 1, so I wrote that down over here. 2 to the 5th power is 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16, times 2 for the 5th time is 32. So 1 times 32 is 32, x to the 5th power is just x to the 5th power. So it's 30 because 2, they multiply by itself, because it's 2x times 2x 5 times. So the 2 is multiplied, the numbers multiplied by the numbers. So 2 multiplied 5 times is 32. X multiplied 5 times is x to the 5th power. Plus 5 combination 1, same thing. You hit 5, hit the math button, press to the left. You should be in the probability mode. You go down twice. By the 3rd thing, it says NCR. You hit it, press 1, and that's equal to 5. 5 combination 1 is 5. 2 to the 4th power is 16. X to the 4th power is x to the 4th power. So, and what, negative 1, you see over here I didn't even say negative 1 to the 0 power because I forgot it. The reason I forgot it was because anything to the 0 power is 1. So it's 1 times 32 to times x to the 5th power times 1. Because anything, including negative 1, anything to the 0 power is a positive 1. And over here you have 5c1, 5 combination 1 is 5, 2x to the 4th power is 16, x to the 4th power times the negative 1, because the negative 1 is to the 1st power, plus 5 combination 2, you put in your calculator, you press 5, hit math, press to the left once, go down twice, you see NCR, that means number combinations, press enter, and that's 2 Prime combination 2 is 10. And it's 10 times 2x to the third power. 2 to the third power is 8. X to the third power is x to the third power. And negative 1 to the second power, any negative number to an even power is even. So the negative 1 becomes positive. 1 times 1 is just 1. Times, and it's 8x squared. So negative 1, I'll write it down over here. Negative 1 squared is just 1. So it's 10 times 8x to the third power times 1 plus 5 combination 3 is 10. 2x to the second power is 4x squared, meaning 4x to the second power. 4 times x to the second power. And negative 1 to the third power, a negative number to an odd power is negative. So 1 times itself is always itself. So it's negative 1 times negative 1 makes it positive. The third time it's multiplied becomes negative again. Negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1, times the third negative 1 is negative 1. So negative 1 to the third power is negative 1. So 5 combination of 3 is 10. 2x to the second power is 4 times x to the second power. Negative 1 to the third power is negative 1. 5 plus 5 combination 4 is 5. 2x to the first power is just 2x. Negative 1 to the fourth power is negative 1 multiplied an even amount of times is just 1. Plus 5 combination 5 is 1. Times 2x to the 0 power, anything to the 0 power is 1. And then times negative 1 to the fifth power, the negative 1 raised to a odd power is negative 1. Now let's work this out. Remember this you already had on the top, you don't have to write it again, but if you would write it, you're writing it on top of all this information. It's 2x minus 1 was raised to the fifth power. Now let's solve for this. The way we solve for it is that 1, all this has to be written out. You shouldn't erase any of this or cross it out. If you want to try it beforehand, do it on the scrap paper, not on the answer card. 1 times 32x to the fifth is 32 x to the fifth. Let's make it a little clearer. Is 32 x to the fifth plus 5 times 16 is 80 x to the fourth power, so it's 80 x to the fourth power. And it's times negative 1, so it becomes a negative 80 x to the fourth power. This negative just means either 80 is negative and x to the fourth power is positive, or x to the fourth power will become negative and 80 is positive, which is a little more difficult, but it's possible to do that too. You have x to the fourth power in parentheses and negative on the outside. So 5 times 16 is 80, times x to the fourth power, times negative 1, makes it a negative 80 x to the fourth power, plus 10 times 8 is 80, times x to the third power, times 1 is just 80x to the third power, plus 10 times 4 is 40, times x to the second power, times negative 1, makes this positive into a negative. That you don't have to show when you're erasing it. So what is it called? Plus 5 times, this is the mistake over here, because it's plus 5 Question 36. Write the binomial expansion of 2x minus 1, and that whole thing is to the fifth power. So the way you write a binomial expansion is you start with the power, that power that everything's raised to, and you take the first term, which is 2x, and that has the power of 5, and the second term, which is negative 1, give that a power of 0. As you move to the beginning of the binomial expansion to the end, the 2x that's to the fifth power will go down to the fourth, to the third, to the second, to the first, to the 0. And as that does, the power will go from the 2x to the negative 1. That means it will be 2x to the fifth power times negative 1 to the 0 power. 2x to the first power, 2x to the 5th times negative 1 to the 0. 2x to the 4th, negative 1 to the first. 2x to the 3rd, negative 1 to the 2nd. 2x to the 2nd, negative 1 to the 3rd. 2x to the 1st, negative 1 to the 4th. And finally, 2x to the 0 will be negative 1 to the 5th. Now let's write out this binomial expansion. So, we're using combinations. It's 5 combination 0, which is 1, times, first is 5 combination 0, times 2x to the 5th power, negative 1 to the 1st power. Now, we move up the combinations till we hit 5 combination 5. And as you'd see it, so it's first 5 combination 0 times 2x to the 5th power times negative 1 to the 0 power plus 5 combination 1 times 2x to the 4th power, negative 1 to the 1st power. As you see, as we take more combinations, as it becomes 5 combination 1, 5 combination 2, 5 combination 3, the negative 1 is getting the same power. So again, let's start from the beginning. The 2x minus 1 to the 5th power's binomial expansion is 5 combination 0 times 2x to the 5th power times negative 1 to the 0 power plus 5 combination 1 times 2x to the 4th power, negative 1 to the 1st power, plus 5 combination 2 times 2x to the 3rd power, negative 1 to the 2nd power, plus 5 combination 3, 2x to the 2nd power, negative 1 to the 3rd power, plus 5 combination 4, 2x to the 1st power, negative 1 to the 4th power, plus 5 combination 5, finally 2x is to the 0 power, and negative 1 is to the 5th power. Now let's work this out. 5 combination 0 is 1. 2 to the 5th power is 32. X to the 5th power is x to the 5th power. Plus 5 combination 1 is, I'm just going to show you for a second what is 5 combination 0. 5 combination 0 means 5 factorial over 5 minus 0 factorial times 0 factorial. 0 factorial is 1. So 5 factorial over 5 minus 0, 5 minus 0 is 5, and that's factorial. So 5 factorial over 5 factorial is just 1. So 5 combination 0 will equal to 1. Now let's work this out. 5 combination 0 is 1 times 32x to the 5th power, because it's 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16, and finally times 2 for the 5th time is 32. So it's 1 times 32, and x to the 5th power is x to the 5th power. So the first term is 1 times 32, x to the 5th power, plus 5 combination 1 is 5, and 2 to the 4th power is 16, x to the 4th power is x to the 4th power, and negative 1 to the 1st power is negative 1. Back here, I didn't say the negative 1 to the 0 power, because anything to the 0 power is a positive 1. Plus 5 combination 2 is 10, times 2 to the 3rd power is 8, x to the 3rd power is x to the 3rd power, negative 1 to an even power is a positive 1. Plus 5 combination 3 is 10, times 2 to the 2nd power is 4, and x to the 2nd power is x squared, negative 1 to an odd power. Any negative number to an odd power will be a negative number. And negative 1 to odd power is negative 1. Plus 5 combination 4 is 5. 2 to the 1st power is 2. X to the 1st power is x. Negative 1 to an even power is just a positive 1. So I could write it in here, but you don't really have to. It's better to write it in. Plus 5 combination 5 is 1. I'm just going to show you over here why it is that way. 5 combination 5 is equal to 5 factorial over 5 minus 5 factorial times 5 factorial. So 5 minus 5 is 0. When it's factorial, it becomes a 1. So it's 1 times 5 factorial. So it's 5 over 5 factorial, which is just 1. So 5 combination 5 is 1. 2x to the 0 power, anything to the 0 power is equal to 1. Negative 1 to the 5th power. A negative number to an odd power is negative. So negative 1 to the 5th power is negative 1. And this is how we work it out. 1 times 32x to the 5th power is 32x to the 5th power. 5 times 16 is 80. Times x to the 4th power times negative 1 is negative 80 x to the 4th power. And 10 times 8 is 80 times x to the 3rd power. Times 1 is just 80 x to the 3rd power. 10 times 4 is 40 x squared times negative 1 is negative 40 x squared plus 5 times 2 is 10. X times 1 is just 10x.